Hello and welcome to the Scottish Farm Advisory Service vlog, where James Marshall, the farm manager at Hoddom and Kinmount Estate, will provide an update on actions being done on the farms to improve efficiency.
After the carbon audit, it obviously opened up some funding to do the soil testing. So we've done a mixture of standard soil tests, so we went over fields and did the W pattern, took samples, and also we did GPS sampling about 30 fields. It's quite an eye-opener, especially given pH levels in some fields. I think there's one field in particular, it was GPS that was 5.6 in one part of it and 6.2 in another part. And actually thinking back to the crop that was in it with spring beans this year, certainly it was a poorer part of the lower pH, and that sort of explains why it was a poorer crop. So that'll give us a chance to balance up that field and hopefully not have the variation in the future. Phosphate levels are generally highish anyway here. Surprising the odd low area. Potash, generally we haven't put potash on anyway. There's odd field that's come back high potash, so we probably could target lower potash fields with farmyard manure. Probably done 3 times as much soil testing because of the grant. There's one block of land which really surprised me that came back with low pH, low phosphate, low air phosphate, low potash, and the crop yield, it was in grass for silage for the AD plant, didn't really indicate there was a problem, but that's one we can certainly rectify, because I think that land's obviously capable of producing a lot more once I've got that sorted out. And I probably wouldn't have tested that block this year because I wasn't concerned about it. So that has probably helped our productivity for the future. I think we need to be probably in front a bit and getting the pHs right, because nothing works without the pH being correct. And I think that's basically the building blocks. Certainly targeting where we're going to put farmyard manure and slurries on and digestate, that will help my decision making quite a lot. So this field, I think this was the first field we filmed in. It was winter barley, 6-row winter barley. I sold that as a standing crop to a local dairy farm, so it went off fairly early. So that gave us a chance to direct drill a forage brassica mix in. And I generally go with stubble turnips, hybrid rape and a bit of kale. So hopefully I've got a balance of plants that if one doesn't do so well, hopefully the other one does better. We've got wintering sheep on now. These will get fattened off these turnips, and I would imagine they'll start selling those off here in about a month, 6 weeks time. But I think it's good for cleaning up the ground, gets rid of a lot of weeds. It's putting fertility back in the ground, and I think it's probably pretty good for wildlife, because generally there are more birds and insects in these crops. So there's a bit of overwintering for farmland birds in it, and I think this is a great entry after this crop to go into spring beans, which will follow on in the rotation. This particular crop was direct drilled, and I think all forage brassicas will direct drill or light cultivation probably. The cereals, we've got a block of land down below us, free of draining land, that's now in the second year direct drill. It's been fairly successful again. There was some fields after beans on the heavier ground, and I thought no, it was too cold and wet, and the surface was a bit rough, so we did actually plough them this time. Not that I really wanted to, but I think I've got to make a success of the following crop. And I think the way the weather has been, they've established really well, and I think that's probably the right decision. But on the suitable, freer draining land, I think we'll progress. We'll keep trying direct drilling. The beans were part of a harvesting trial, just to compare different types of headers and compare the losses between headers, because they can be quite tricky to harvest. And obviously the actual bean seed itself, you want that in your pit. Hopefully being part of that trial work, it helps everybody really, because I'm a firm believer that they're a good source of starch and protein, homegrown protein. So the lower the losses, the better the crop, the more success it'll have, and hopefully the more it'll replace bought-in proteins. Yeah, it was one of the best crops of beans I've probably ever grown. And that was a field that was grown with no bagged fertiliser. That was all farmyard manure. It came off at 10 tonnes to the acre fresh weight at 25% dry matter, which is probably at least 5 to 10% moister than I liked, but it was the season as much as anything else. The beans were very, very slow to die off, and it was getting late September, beginning of October, so we thought we'd just get them going, get them in the pit. One of the things I had to be careful with, not to overload the trailers, just because of the weight, because they're very, very dense. But again, they're feeding very well, moister than I'd like, but the cattle are certainly performing on them. We've been using the new whey crate with a manual squeeze on it. We've got it set up on a temporary basis because it needs a bit more work around the pens. We've put all the batches of cattle through now at least once because I had to get them on the system, the whey system. So a lot of the cattle have EID tags in, so there's a little bit of time inputting that data onto the weigh head in order to get the right information. So every time they go through now, I'll need to scan the tag, all the information's there. It'll tell me its daily live weight gain, how many days since it was last weighed, etc. So in the next month or so, we'll be really using that a lot more and start getting the benefits of taking out probably the poorer performers and tweaking the ration if we need to tweak the ration to get the performance we need.